Hey everyone, you know all those Zoom meetings we've all been enduring lately, the ones where people have those pretty but fake backgrounds behind them? Well, I just thought we'd start our presentation off today with me sharing with you the view from my home office. So come on, let's go outside. All right. So, downtown Missoula is about 4 miles that way. You can see the Clark Fork River flowing in the background. And this is just one of thousands of gorgeous views and gorgeous places in western Montana. So hey everybody, I'm Brigitte with Montana World Trade Center. Stay tuned because I'm going to share with you some information today about the new normal and why knowledge-based industries are thriving outside of big cities and in places like this. Come on, let's head back in. All right, let's get started. So here's the flow of our presentation today. First, spoiler, I'm going to use Montana as a case study, and I'll start with what you may know about Montana, and then we'll move into some key characteristics you probably don't know. I'll share my observations about how those attributes positively impact knowledge-based industries and businesses of all kinds, including bioscience. Particularly for our international viewers, let me give you a little bit of context. Montana is in the northwestern region of the United States, and we're one of the largest states geographically. We border 3 Canadian provinces. In this vast space, we have about 1 million people, and we have one of the highest per capita educational attainment levels in the US. In my home county, for example, nearly half of the people over age 25 have a bachelor's degree or higher. And of course, we are home to some of the most amazing, pristine natural places on the planet, like Yellowstone and Glacier National Parks. And in a place that has abundant natural beauty, you might expect, and you would be correct, that we have a thriving tourism industry. People come from all over the world to be inspired here, to visit our national parks, to hike, to bike, fish, camp, and to achieve balance. You might expect, and you'd be correct, that we have thriving agricultural and extractive industries in our state. And it looks like my favorite factoid isn't on this slide on the ag side, and that is that in Montana, cattle outnumber people 2.5 to 1. Here's something you may not know about the state of Montana. We are consistently ranked by entities like the Kauffman Foundation that tracks entrepreneurship and startup activity as having one of the highest levels of startup activity in the nation. You may not know that knowledge-based industries of all kinds, whether we're talking photonics and optics, cloud computing, or bioscience, are choosing to site away from major metro areas and instead in vibrant small cities across America, in particular in Montana, where they're thriving. And just to give you a couple examples of that in Montana, Oracle has operations in Bozeman. They employ several hundred people, and it's a stone's throw away from Yellowstone National Park. In my hometown, Missoula, Montana, UK-based Cognizant, a major player in the e-health space, just acquired a local firm. GlaxoSmithKline has a major manufacturing facility in Hamilton, Montana. It's adjacent to our level 4 bioscience lab, and we'll talk about that later. So let's drill down a bit more on the bioscience ecosystem in Montana. We'll talk about major pharma, startups, VC, our research focus, and of course, our work with COVID-19. Given what's happening globally, let's start with the pandemic response emanating from Montana. It may be a surprise to you to learn that Montana is at the forefront of global COVID-19 response. Just a couple examples of that I'll go over here. On the supply side, Rocky Mountain Biologicals is meeting not only local hospital needs for viral transport media, but they're now manufacturing at scale and selling nationally and internationally. On the research side, the University of Montana Center for Translational Medicine is working to develop a COVID-19 vaccine with the help of a $2.5 million grant from the NIH. Montana State University's researchers are deploying CRISPR technology for treatment of COVID-19 and a wide range of other diseases. Bozeman-based Golden Helix actually published a book on the genetic analysis of the COVID-19 virus and other pathogens, providing foundational research and essential intel to other researchers. And of course, I would be remiss if I did not mention Rocky Mountain Labs. It's one of a handful of level 4 bioscience facilities in the US run by the NIH. It currently has 5 teams focused on the COVID-19 pandemic response. This facility was recently featured on National Public Radio and in the New York Times essential work in combating the current pandemic. Now to the private sector. Major pharma is alive and well in our state, and in fact, the agility of Montana's startup bio firms helps major pharma to leapfrog for technological advances and supply chain solutions that save them years in development. GSK is a good example of that, having acquired a pharmaceutical manufacturing facility with Montana roots in the early 2000s and just initiating in 2019 a major $100 million expansion of this facility, which supports their global adjuvant system development program. On the startup front, here's some key Montana bioscience startups, many of whom are attending Bio virtually this year, so I definitely invite you to connect with them. Inimmune is focused on the discovery and development of new immunomodulatory therapeutics for treatment of allergic diseases, upper respiratory tract infections, topical treatment of skin diseases, and other diseases targeted through innate immune receptor activation or inhibition. Montana Molecular develops genetically encoded fluorescent biosensors and probes for cell-based assays and live cell imaging used in drug discovery. FIRE's focus is on diagnostic technologies and supporting devices, and we'll talk about them more in a moment. And of course, I actually mentioned RM Bio earlier, and I would say this firm has actually graduated from the startup phase, having recently been acquired by Korean firm Wellgene, and they've expanded their distribution to labs globally. On the e-health front, Montana's SaaS firms lead the way. Just as an example, Pulsara's communication platform is connecting treatment teams across organizations. Patient One monitors patients while they're home between clinical encounters, a technology that has proven absolutely essential in pandemic response. Moving on to VC. If you're wondering how private equity feels about Montana, well, they like it here too. Two Bear Capital is a $250 million VC fund in Whitefish, Montana, with focus on biotechnology, bioinformatics, healthcare IT, information security, machine learning, and AI. They're a recent addition to the Montana landscape, and we certainly welcome them and agree with their assessment of opportunity in Montana. They've funded a couple of different startups in Montana, including Fire Diagnostics, which I mentioned before. They have a novel DNA, RNA amplification technology. XE Bio has a platform for highly complex workflows, tools, and data that's specific to the medical research community. And they've backed Expecipor's expertise in neurotherapeutics. And of course, Next Frontier established operations in Montana in 2015 and has made 25 investments to date. On the research front, Montana has two major state-funded universities. The University of Montana is a Carnegie Research High-Activity Institution with $95 million in research activity annually. Montana State University is in the top 3% of colleges and universities for research expenditures, averaging $120 million annually. Our areas of research specialization around the state are diverse, from McLaughlin Research Center's focus on neuroscience, including Alzheimer's and other brain diseases, to Western Montana's focus on cancer research, CRISPR, non-opioid pain treatments, TBI, e-health platforms, and more. And actually, this is an interesting note. Montana boasts one of the highest SBIR success rates in the nation, with nearly half of our SBIR submissions funded in 2019. And finally, Montana was awarded one of 7 contracts nationally in 2019 in support of our bioscience cluster. I do think that speaks to the fact that the SBA also recognizes what has occurred here organically in Montana, and they want to partner with us. They see a real opportunity for ROI in Montana. Which brings me to my next point, and that is, so what? I've just spent a few minutes giving you an overview of the bioscience landscape in Montana. I've talked about organic growth of bio firms, our research expertise, a bit about this amazing inspirational place. And I know that despite a pretty PowerPoint, you might be thinking to yourselves, so what? Why does that ecosystem or that place or that talent matter to me? So the reason these multinational companies, VC firms, and startups are making the decision to form, site, and expand in Montana really centers firmly on return on investment. Now let's talk about a couple parts of that return on investment equation where I think small cities in rural America, and in particular in Montana, really have a competitive advantage, and we'll drill down there a little bit. First, turnover, or more to the point, lower turnover. Just to frame that a bit for you, I think it was LinkedIn that did a study back in 2017 that looked across industries at turnover. And as you might expect, tech industry had a very high turnover rate. I think it was second only to the retail trade, which was something north of 13%. Even tech giants like Google don't typically hold on to their tech employees for more than 1 year. So think about that. The hundreds of millions they make, how many millions they spend to find talent and to train talent and to keep talent on board. So what if you could site in a location where you could have people who wanted to stay? And what if their single driving motivation behind their existence wasn't a 6-figure salary, but it was something more like having a short commute to work, or being able to go out and hike and bike and play and really achieve work-life balance? I know a little something about that because I'm not from Montana. I'm actually from the East Coast of the United States originally. And as a matter of fact, I lived and worked in Washington, D.C. for a number of years before I escaped the Beltway and headed to Montana, and I have never looked back. And I'll tell you that I was an outlier in my generation, but when we're talking about Gen Z and knowledge-based workers in general, this calculus absolutely informs their decisions. So when you're talking about knowledge-based companies and where to site, think of that. The second part of the ROI equation has to do with the impact of your extended team. If you're siting in Montana, I don't care if you're a 5-person team or you're a 500-person team. I will guarantee you that you will have an extended, dedicated pool of people that will help you get your venture up and running and to the point of profitability as quickly as possible. And yes, of course, I'm talking about economic development professionals, but I'm also talking about the university system. It's not only a place for basic research, of course, it's your partner who's there and ready to be agile and work with you and your firm to train your employees, the ones you need today and the ones you're going to need tomorrow. You know, it's also important to talk about the accessibility and the responsiveness you'll have here from every level of government. In the state of Montana, I guarantee you, within 1 year of establishing your operations, every member of our congressional delegation will know you by your first name. Now just think about how that extended, dedicated team of professionals impacts your ability to achieve your business goals. In the end, bioscience is about fueling, feeding, and healing the world. In Montana, our success in the first 2 categories underpins our expertise in the latter. There are some industries that are tied to geography, but when we're talking about bioscience, it's not in that bucket. Monumental scientific discoveries and cognitive leaps forward are not tied to geography. They're tied to intellectual capital. It's individual people who have the presence of mind and perhaps audacity of spirit to think that they are the one responsible for making that next leap forward. And maybe that's you. I certainly invite you to learn more about Montana's knowledge-based bio businesses and our state, and how you can become a part of what's happening here. So here's my contact info. I thank you for your time today and look forward to welcoming you and your team to Montana.